Good afternoon, everybody. It's Steve Lookner with Right Side Broadcasting. The memo has been released. We have the memo. There's the memo. There it is. We're going to read it right now. This is the memo. It was just released. President Trump approved it. We're going to read it on the air. I haven't even read this thing yet. So here's the memo. I just got it off the White House site, the House of Representatives site. So let's read this memo together. So this memo supposedly talks about FBI and Department of Justice misconduct in the way they went about requesting a surveillance warrant on Carter Page, who was working for President Trump's campaign. So let's just read it. I haven't read it yet. Let's just read it. This is the memo. And a quick preview. I have heard, well, I'm not sure if it's in the memo. I saw reports saying that Andrew McCabe said that the warrant wouldn't have been requested without material from the Trump dossier, which sounds kind of significant. But anyways, I want to just get to the memo. So let's read the memo. I'm going to read it over, and we'll talk about it, okay? So I want to get to it. All right, here's the memo. Let me just make sure you can hear me now before I read it to you. Okay, cool. All right, here we go. We're going to read the memo. Are you ready, folks? I haven't read it. It is, let's see. Oh, so it's 4 pages long, and there's a cover letter, too. All right, so this is the cover letter. Mr. Chairman, blah, 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 blah. This is the memo release note. I want to get to the actual memo. Here's the memo. Here's the memo. Okay, here we go. To HPSCI majority members from HPSCI majority staff. Subject, foreign intelligence. I think HPSCI is, let me just make sure about this. I think HPSCI is the Intelligence Committee. But let me just make sure. We want to be careful here. House of Representative Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. So HPSCI is the Intelligence Committee. Okay. Subject, Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, abuses at the Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. All right, so already it's interesting to me because it's not like the memos about, like, generally the way about which they got this warrant, and it mentions some abuses. Literally the subject of the memo is FISA Act abuses at the Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. That is the subject of the memo. Purpose. This memo provides members an update on significant facts relating to the committee's ongoing investigation into the Department of Justice and the FBI investigation and their use of the FISA Act during the 2016 presidential election cycle. Our findings, which are detailed below: 1. Raise concerns with the legitimacy and legality of certain Department of Justice and FBI interactions with the FISA court, with the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, and 2, represent a troubling breakdown of legal processes established to protect the American people from abuses related to the FISA process. So again, the subject of this memo is FISA abuses at Department of Justice and FBI, okay? So that's what it's going to talk about. All right, let's get into it. Investigation update. On October 21st, 2016, by the way, just real quick, thank you for donating, Zach C. and Roger C. Appreciate your support. We are viewer supported, so if you like that we're actually reading the memo on the air, you know, I've looked at the news networks, like I have CNN on here and I have MSNBC on, and I'm flipping around. I don't see anyone actually literally reading you the whole memo. We're going to read you the whole memo right now. If you like that we're doing this, you can support Right Side. We're viewer supported. Go to the bottom of the YouTube chat, click on the $ at the bottom of the YouTube chat, or go to rsbn.tv/donate, rsbn.tv/donate. Sorry to interrupt for that, but we are viewer supported. That's how we stay on the air. All right, let's get into the memo. Investigation update. On October 21st, 2016, the DOJ and the FBI sought and received a FISA probable cause order, not under Title VII, authorizing electronic surveillance on Carter Page, who worked for the Trump campaign, from the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court. Page is a U.S. citizen who served as a volunteer advisor to the Trump presidential campaign. Consistent with requirements under FISA, the application had to first be certified by the director or deputy director of the FBI. It then required the approval of the Attorney General, Deputy Attorney General, or the Senate-confirmed Assistant Attorney General for the National Security Division. The FBI and the DOJ obtained one initial FISA warrant targeting Trump campaign advisor Carter Page and 3 FISA renewals from the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court. As required by statute, a FISA order on an American citizen must be renewed by the FISA court every 90 days, and each renewal requires a separate finding of probable cause. Then Director James Comey signed 3 FISA applications in question on behalf of the FBI, and Deputy Director Andrew McCabe signed 1. So McCabe signed 1 of the FISA applications, and Comey signed 3. Then Deputy Attorney General Sally Yates, then acting Deputy Attorney General Dana Bonte, and Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein each signed 1 or more FISA applications on behalf of DOJ. And thank you, real quick, Flyshacker, for the donation. So I just want to point out here. The people who composed this memo, the House Republicans, think that this whole procedure by which the FBI and the DOJ went about getting a surveillance warrant, which they got, on Trump advisor Carter Page, Trump campaign advisor Carter Page, they think this procedure is flawed. But what the paragraph we just read says is it specifically points out names of people who signed off on requesting this warrant and requesting extensions. And it says Comey signed off on 3 of the applications, McCabe signed off on 1, and then from the Department of Justice, Sally Yates signed off on 1, Dana Bonte signed off on 1, and Rosenstein, they each signed off on 1 or more. Yates, Bonte, or Rosenstein signed off on 1 or more. So if President Trump is upset about this warrant, presumably he's going to be upset with Comey, McCabe, Yates, Bonte, and Rosenstein, because they all signed off on requesting these warrants and or extending these requesting this warrant and or extending this warrant. Okay, let's continue here. Due to the sensitive nature of foreign intelligence activity, FISA submissions, including renewals, before the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court are classified. As such, the public's confidence in the integrity of the FISA process depends on the court's ability to hold the government to the highest standard, particularly as it relates to surveillance of American citizens. However, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court's rigor in protecting the rights of Americans, which is reinforced by 90-day renewals of surveillance orders, is necessarily dependent on the government's production to the court of all material and relevant facts. This should include information potentially favorable to the target of the FISA application that is known by the government. In the case of Carter Page, the government had at least 4 independent opportunities before the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court to accurately provide an accounting of the relevant facts. However, our findings indicate that, as described below, material and relevant information was omitted. So we just finished the first of the page of the memo, and here's what the argument it's basically making. It's saying Carter Page was working for the Trump campaign, 2016. The FBI and the Department of Justice went to a foreign intelligence surveillance judge to get a warrant so they could survey, listen in, and monitor the communications of Carter Page, who was working for the Trump campaign during the campaign. They did this in October 2016, so this is a month before the election. They asked if they could listen into Carter Page's communications and survey his communications, secretly watch his communications. And what this memo is saying is, when the DOJ and the FBI goes to that judge and says, hey, we want a warrant to listen in and read Carter Page's personal communications, they have to present evidence to the judge why they think it's warranted to listen into Carter Page. I mean, Carter Page is an American citizen, so the FBI and DOJ can't just walk to a judge and say, hey, I want to listen to American citizens John Smith's phone calls. And the judge will be like, sure, go ahead, listen to them. You got to tell the judge why it's warranted for you to listen in on this person's calls and to read their emails and such. And what we just read in the first part of this memo is the memo is claiming that when the DOJ and the FBI went to the judge on 4 separate occasions to first request the warrant and the 3 times they requested renewals, they omitted relevant information that was favorable to Carter Page, that might have made the judge less likely to grant this warrant to listen in on Carter Page. So now they're about to get into what was the information that the memo says the FBI and the DOJ should have presented that they didn't present. And that's what's coming up next in the memo. We're going to get to it right now. There's like a spot on my glasses and I need to wipe it off. All right, all better, so I can see. And you are watching, this is our live coverage we're reading the memo. I have not read it yet. We just did page 1. Now we're on to page 2. Thank you for being with us here. Thank you, Wheel Lee 45 for the donation. We are viewer supported, so if you like that we're doing this, I think we're the only network on, news network, at least that I've seen so far. I've had CNN and MSNBC on. No one's actually reading the whole memo. We're doing that first here at Right Side Broadcasting. If you like that we're doing that, please consider donating. We're viewer supported. Your donations keep us on the air. You can donate by going to the bottom of the YouTube chat and clicking on the $sign at the bottom of the YouTube chat, or go to rsbn.tv/donate. And thank you to our moderators for being with us today, Webster and JC. And I got to tell Jake to put this on the website. I forgot, if it's not up there already. So let me send one text. Oops. Before I get to page 2, everybody on our website's probably like, where is this broadcast? Hey, live now, can you post on site? Sorry, guys. All right, let's get back to the memo here. Okay, what do they say? Let's see, what does this memo say the info was that the FBI and the DOJ should have given to that judge when requesting this warrant on Carter Page but didn't give to the judge? Let's see right now. 1. The dossier compiled by Christopher Steele, Steele dossier, on behalf of the Democratic National Committee and the Hillary Clinton campaign formed an essential part of the Carter Page FISA application. Steele was a longtime FBI source who was paid over $160,000 by the DNC and the Clinton campaign via the law firm Perkins Coie and research firm Fusion GPS to obtain derogatory information on Donald Trump's ties to Russia. A. Neither the initial application in October 2016 nor any of the renewals disclose or reference the role of the DNC, the Clinton campaign, or any party/campaign in funding Steele's efforts, even though the political origins of the Steele dossier were then known to senior DOJ and FBI officials. B. The initial FISA application notes Steele was working for a named U.S. person, but the initial FISA application notes Steele was working for a named U.S. person, but does not name Fusion GPS and principal Glenn Simpson, who was paid by a U.S. law firm Perkins Coie representing the DNC, even though it was known by DOJ at the time that political actors were involved with the Steele dossier. The application does not mention Steele was ultimately working on behalf of and paid by the DNC and Clinton campaign, or that the FBI had separately authorized payment to Steele for this same information. So here is the first wrongdoing charge in this memo that we just saw. What the memo is saying is, when the DOJ and the FBI goes to the judge and says, hey, we want a warrant to listen in on Carter Page. And again, they're requesting this warrant October 2016 during the campaign. They want to listen in on a Trump campaign advisor, Carter Page. And they're requesting this warrant. And part of the evidence they present as to why they should be able to listen in on this warrant, and I believe what they have to show to get this warrant is that there's probable cause to think that Carter Page is a Russian agent working for Russia's benefit. If I'm right, I believe they have to show, to get a warrant like this, that Carter Page was working for the interests of Russia. I believe that's the case. I have to clarify that. But anyways, they have to present evidence like that to show that this warrant is reasonable to request and to get the judge to request the warrant. And what the memo says is, an essential part of the info they gave the judge about Carter Page that they thought would get the Carter Page to grant this warrant was info about Carter Page, or some sort of info. They don't tell us which info, some sort of info from the Trump dossier, which was opposition research that was paid for in part by the DNC in the Hillary Clinton campaign. But when they presented this info, which the memo says was essential info in requesting the warrant, when they present this info to the judge about either about Carter Page, it had to be about Carter Page in some sense, they didn't say, hey, judge, something you might want to know is this info here about Carter Page comes from this opposition research on Trump that was paid for by the DNC in the Hillary Clinton campaign. Because if you say that to the judge, the judge might say, if this info was paid for by the DNC in the Hillary Clinton campaign, I'm not so sure I can trust this info. Maybe I shouldn't trust this info, and maybe that would make the judge less likely to actually grant the warrant on Carter Page, which was ultimately granted. And so what the memo says is 4 different times they go to this judge to request the initial warrant and also to request each of the 3 extensions of the warrant. And every time they went to that judge, they had a chance to tell the judge that this essential info what came from opposition research paid for by the Hillary Clinton campaign and the DNC, and they never mentioned that to the judge. They never mentioned it to the judge. So it says here, neither the initial application in 2016 nor any of the renewals disclose or reference the role of the DNC, the Clinton campaign, or any party campaign in funding Steele's efforts. They never mentioned this to the court. And they never mentioned that the person who ran Fusion GPS, that was in charge of the company that was doing this opposition research, they were getting paid by the DNC. They didn't mention that. So that's the first big charge here, is that when the DOJ and FBI requested this warrant on Carter Page, who was working for the Trump campaign, and they requested this warrant during the campaign, they didn't tell the judge, hey, some of this essential info that we're giving you about Carter Page in order for you to grant this warrant is opposition research paid for by the DNC and the Hillary Clinton campaign. So that's the first big charge in this memo. All right, let's move on to number 2, shall we? So you're watching Right Side Broadcasting's live coverage of the memo release. We are, unlike the talking heads on the mainstream media who are kind of shouting different things, we're going to read the whole memo first. I see maybe people quoting part of the memo. We're reading you the whole memo. So we're now about halfway through the memo. If you missed the first part, you can always go back and watch it. But we're hearing we're into what the memo says that the DOJ and the FBI did wrong in requesting this warrant on Carter Page. And the first thing we just heard they said that the FBI and the DOJ did wrong is they went to a judge and they didn't tell the judge that some of the info about Carter Page they were presenting to the judge was gotten from the Trump dossier, which was paid for in part by Hillary Clinton's campaign and the DNC. All right, let's move on to number 2 here. Hang on, let me just... I want to thanks again to the moderators for being with us today. Much appreciated. And thanks to NC Spaceman for making a donation. Thank you. Okay. Number two. They said they're going to mention 4 different things I think the FBI and DOJ did wrong. We're on to number 2. The Carter Page FISA application also cited extensively a September 23rd, 2016 Yahoo News article by Michael Isikoff, which focuses on Page's July 2016 trip to Moscow. This article does not corroborate the Steele dossier because it is derived from information leaked by Steele himself to Yahoo News. Interesting. The Page FISA application incorrectly assesses that Steele did not provide information to Yahoo News. Steele has admitted in British court filings that he met with Yahoo News and several other outlets in September 2016 at the direction of Fusion GPS. Perkins Coie was aware of Steele's initial media contacts because they hosted at least one meeting in Washington, D.C. in 2016 with Steele and Fusion GPS where this matter was discussed. A, Steele was suspended and then terminated as an FBI source for what the FBI defines as the most serious of violations, an unauthorized disclosure to the media of his relationship with the FBI in an October 30th, 2016 Mother Jones article by David Korn. Steele should have been terminated for his previous undisclosed contacts with Yahoo and other outlets in September, before the Page application was submitted to the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court in October, but Steele improperly concealed from and lied to the FBI about those contacts. B. Steele's numerous encounters with the media violated the cardinal rule of source handling, maintaining confidentiality, and demonstrated that Steele had become a less than reliable source for the FBI. Okay, so I want to go back here. Let's read over this section again. It looks to me like what this section is saying. In the first part, it says, the Carter Page FISA application cited extensively a Yahoo News article. I see what it's saying. Okay. So when the FBI and the DOJ go to the judge to request a warrant on Carter Page, who's working for the Trump campaign, part of the info on Carter Page they give to the judge is this Yahoo News article by Michael Isikoff, which talks about Carter Page's 2016 July trip to Moscow. And I guess what they're saying in this paragraph is somebody might say, well, that article is different from the Trump dossier, and it shows that some of the information in the Trump dossier is correct. It helps verify the Trump dossier. And now it doesn't say who says that, so I don't know if the application, if the warrant application says that. But anyways, it says this article does not actually corroborate the Steele dossier because it is derived from information leaked by Steele himself to Yahoo News. So what's kind of missing in this memo is it seems like what's implied here is that the application for the warrant on Carter Page somehow uses the Yahoo News article to corroborate the Trump dossier, the Steele dossier, and suggest that the Steele dossier, it's true, it's accurate because this Yahoo News article also talks about something that's in the Steele dossier. However, what this memo says is, look, the Yahoo News article doesn't help corroborate the Steele dossier because the Yahoo News article is based on info leaked by Richard Steele himself to Yahoo News. So the Yahoo News article can't corroborate the Steele dossier if it came from Steele, just like the Steele dossier did. So it's a little confusing of a point because what I'd love to see in this memo is where exactly, maybe they can't release it because it's classified, but what use exactly does the surveillance warrant make of the Yahoo News article? It doesn't say, so it's hard for us to say how much the Yahoo News article is used and relied on in the initial warrant request. And this part is basically saying, well, they shouldn't have relied on the Yahoo News article in the warrant request, but we don't know how much the warrant request relied on the Yahoo News article because we don't have the warrant request. So it's a little, that's what it's saying here, but without seeing the warrant request, we can't tell if the Yahoo News article was like a really important part of the warrant request or just like something mentioned in 2 sentences of the warrant request. I mean, the warrant request, I've heard is like 50, 60 pages long, or something like that. So it's a bit tough one to assess this number 2 here. Anyways, let's keep going. We've read through number 1, we've read through number 2, let's get to number 3. And we'll do a quick recap before that of what this memo says so far. All right, let's do that. All right, so I want to recap for you. We're more than halfway through the memo. I want to recap what's going on in this memo for people who've just joined us. So this memo is a 4-page memo, and the subject of the memo is basically, well, I can read you the subject of the memo. You can see right here. Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act abuses at the Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And basically, this memo is outlining 4 different ways it thinks the DOJ and the FBI messed up when they requested a warrant on Carter Page, who was working for the Trump campaign in October 2016, a month before the election, while the campaign was still going on. They requested a surveillance warrant so they could listen in on Carter Page, who was working. I don't know if he was still working for the Trump campaign, but he certainly had been working, and he wasn't, and he very well might still have been in contact with people from the campaign. So they request this warrant to listen in on him. The idea of the warrant request is that he's maybe a Russian agent. He's working with the Russians. And so when they request this warrant, they got to go to a judge and present evidence that they think Carter Page is working with the Russians. Because the judge won't just hand them a warrant, say, go ahead, listen in on this American citizen. And they present all this information about Carter Page to get this surveillance warrant. And what this memo is doing is saying, here are 4 big things they did wrong when they went to this judge and requested this warrant on Carter Page. The first thing, which we went over, number 1, is that they said an essential part of the info about Carter Page they gave the judge came from the Trump dossier, which was put together by, is it Richard Steele? Am I remembering that right? Christopher Steele. Christopher Steele and Fusion GPS hired. So Christopher Steele and Fusion GPS put together this Trump dossier that formed, according to the memo, an essential part of the info about Carter Page that they gave to a judge. The FBI and DOJ gave to a judge to request this warrant. And they say in the initial warrant application and the 3 subsequent times they went to the judge to request an extension of this warrant, they never told the judge that this essential info from the Steele dossier was paid for. That research was paid for by the Hillary Clinton campaign and the Democratic National Committee, the DNC. Never mentioned that to the judge. So that was charge 1. Charge 2 is that the FBI and the DOJ relied on a Yahoo News article to corroborate the Steele dossier, but the memo says, well, that article doesn't corroborate the Steele dossier because it was based on information leaked to Yahoo by Christopher Steele, who wrote the Steele dossier. So how can information coming from Christopher Steele corroborate Christopher Steele's dossier? All right, so that's number 1 and number 2. We are now moving on to number 3. There are 4 charges, basically, 4 accusations of FBI and DOJ wrongdoing. We are now moving on to number 3. And thank you for the donations, Miss Deborah. Miss Deborah says, thank you, Steve, for being on the ball and getting us the memo ASAP. God bless you and keep staying true to the truth. Thank you, Miss Deborah. And thank you, Marty Smith fan, for your donation as well. We are viewer supported. We appreciate your donations because those are what keeps us on the air. If you like that we're doing this, I don't think CNN, MSNBC, Fox, they're actually reading the whole memo with you. But we are doing that here. If you like that we're doing that, you can donate to us by going to the bottom of the YouTube chat. Click on the $sign at the bottom of the YouTube chat. There's a little $sign there. Or go to rsbn.tv/donate, rsbn.tv/donate. And when we're done with the memo, I'm going to take your comments on the air. If you have comments on this memo, if you have thoughts on this, write to me on the air at Lookner on Twitter, at Lookner on Twitter. So as soon as we're done reading this memo, I'm going to take your comments. I'm looking forward to that. Let's go through the memo. We've done sections 1 and 2. Let's get to sections 3 and 4. Here is section 3. Okay. Before and after Steele was terminated as a source, he maintained contact with the Department of Justice via then Associate Deputy Attorney General Bruce Orr, a senior DOJ official who worked closely with Deputy Attorneys General Yates and later Rosenstein. Shortly after the election, the FBI began interviewing Orr, documenting his communications with Steele. For example, in September 2016, Steele admitted to Orr his findings against then-candidate Trump when Steele said he was, quote, when Steele said he, quote, was desperate that Donald Trump not get elected and was passionate about him not being president. This clear evidence of Steele's bias was recorded by Orr at the time and subsequently in official FBI files, but not reflected in any of the Page FISA applications. During this same time period, Orr's wife was employed by Fusion GPS to assist in the cultivation of opposition research on Trump. Orr later provided the FBI with all of his wife's opposition research, paid for by the DNC and Clinton campaign via Fusion GPS. The Orr's relationship with Steele and Fusion GPS was inexplicably concealed from the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court. Okay, so 3. the big charge that they're making in 3 is they're saying the people who wrote this memo in the House Intelligence Committee are saying that there was evidence, they say, that Christopher Steele, who assembled the Trump dossier, there's evidence that he was biased against Trump. There's this quote. There's no context to this quote, so I can't tell you the context of this quote. I always am a bit concerned when I see, one sentence or a part of a sentence taken out of context. But anyways, what the memo says is Steele said at some point to Deputy Attorney General Bruce Orr that he was desperate that Donald Trump not get elected and was passionate about him not being president. Again, we don't have context there. But anyways, what the memo says is that this was clear evidence of Steele's bias, and that a deputy attorney general had this evidence because it was said to the deputy attorney general, and it was said to him in September of 2016, a month before the warrant application on Carter Page. And what the memo is saying is that's information in October when the warrant was applied for by the DOJ and the FBI. They should have told the judge. Remember, the memo says that the Steele dossier, the information, opposition research gathered by Christopher Steele and paid for by the Clinton campaign and the DNC, they're saying the memo says that info was essential in getting this warrant essential in the warrant request on Carter Page. And they're saying, look, if you're going to make that information from the Steele dossier essential info in your warrant application, you got to tell the judge, but you should know, judge, Steele is biased against Trump. And they're saying that they didn't tell the Department of Justice, even though they had information that Steele was biased against Trump, did not present that information to the judge when they requested the warrant on Carter Page. And they should have, because an essential part of the information that they were about Carter Page that they gave to the judge to request this warrant came from Christopher Steele. So again, we have another charge here where the memo is saying that the DOJ and the FBI were not upfront about the judge about where they got their research on Carter Page, and the memo is, I think, saying that what they're saying is if they had told the full story behind behind the Steele dossier, who paid for it, and the fact that they say Steele was biased against Trump, that would have made the judge less likely to approve the surveillance warrant. So they're saying that there. So let's move on now to number 4. This is the last, I believe, charge against. There might be one more, but I thought they said there were going to be 4. Let's see. Maybe there are 5. No, they say at least 4. Maybe there are 5. Okay. I might have misspoke or misinterpreted this. So I see a number 4 and a number 5. So we have 2 paragraphs to go in the memo. So let's get to number 4. Number 4, the fourth thing that the memo says the DOJ and the FBI did wrong is as follows. According to the head of the FBI's Counterintelligence Division, Assistant Director Bill Priestap, according to the head of the FBI's Counterintelligence Division, Assistant Director Bill Priestap, corroboration of the Steele dossier was in its infancy at the time of initial Page FISA application. After Steele was terminated, a source validation report conducted by an independent unit within the FBI assessed Steele's reporting as only minimally corroborated. Yet in early 2017, Director Comey briefed President-elect Trump on a summary of the Steele dossier, even though it was, according to his June 2017 testimony, salacious and unverified. While the FISA application relied on Steele's past record of credible reporting on other unrelated matters, it ignored or concealed his anti-Trump financial and ideological motivations. Furthermore, Deputy Director McCabe testified before the committee in December 2017, that no surveillance warrant would have been sought from the FISA without the Steele dossier information. Okay, a bunch going on in this paragraph here. Thank you, Tia Marie, for the donation. Okay, so let's look at this paragraph again. In the first part of this paragraph, the memo is saying that this info, that it's saying the FBI itself didn't think that the Trump dossier was verified. It says, look, according to the head of the FBI's counterintelligence division, in October 2016, when the FBI and the DOJ used this Steele dossier as essential part of their warrant to request surveillance on Trump campaign advisor Carter Page, and they used the information in this dossier in this warrant, the head of the FBI's counterintelligence division said at that time the corroboration of the dossier was in its infancy. So they had really not done much corroborating of this dossier, yet they were using the information of the dossier in their warrant applications. That's the first charge, that they were using this information that the memo says was not very corroborated in their warrant application. And then it says, after Steele was terminated, a source validation report conducted by an independent unit within the FBI assessed Steele's reporting as only minimally corroborated. And yet in early 2017, Comey briefed President-elect Trump on a summary of the dossier, even though it was salacious and unverified, according to... So they're faulting Comey here for briefing Trump on the dossier, but that seems sort of tangential, because the big point of this memo is not criticizing Comey for briefing Trump. It's criticizing the way the FBI and the DOJ went about requesting a surveillance warrant. Now, it also says... It says the FISA application, it says, it looks to me like it's saying when they applied, the FBI and the DOJ applied for this FISA surveillance warrant on Carter Page, we don't have their application. I wish we had it, but we don't. But it's implied here that the FBI and the DOJ told the judge, look, we're giving you some information from the Steele dossier, but Steele is a reliable guy because in the past he's given us reliable information. And indeed, the memo says in the past Steele had given the FBI reliable information. But what the memo says is that, but what they left out telling the judge is that fine, Steele gave reliable information in the past, but in this case, with this dossier, there are reasons to think the information is unreliable, namely, one, that Steele is being paid by the DNC and Hillary Clinton campaign, and two, there's evidence of Steele being strongly biased against Trump. And the memo is saying all the FBI told the judges Steele's been reliable in the past, and the FBI and the DOJ didn't tell the judge, well, Steele's getting paid for this research by the Hillary Clinton campaign and the DNC, and we have evidence of Steele being biased against Trump. And the memo is saying they should have told that about Steele to the judge, and they gave the judge an incomplete picture of Christopher Steele and some of his background. So they're saying that here. And also, key point at the end here. So it says Deputy Director McCabe, who is no longer the deputy director of the FBI, but he was at the time of the writing of this memo, testified before the House Intelligence Committee in December 2017 that no surveillance warrant would have been sought from the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court without the Steele dossier information. Now, this is important because we've been hearing this argument in the media and among politicians over the last couple months. Because people knew that this memo was going to question the reliability of the Trump dossier. And it was going, that was this research dossier that was paid for in part by the Clinton campaign and by the DNC. And people knew, there was word around that this memo was going to say, hey, the FBI and DOJ relied on this Trump dossier when they went to get this warrant on a Trump campaign worker and a campaign associate, and there are all these questions about the Trump dossier. But some people on, I know some people on the left said this, and some people in the media said, well, look, this is all a distraction. This is not really relevant because the Trump dossier wasn't that important in getting the warrant. there was a charge about this memo before this memo came out, which said the memo is making a big deal over nothing because all it's focusing on the dossier, it was on the dossier, but they didn't really need the dossier and didn't really rely on the dossier to get the warrant, and they could have gotten the warrant without the dossier. Now, if that was the case, if the info in the dossier wasn't really important in getting the warrant, then you could see someone saying, well, I don't see why it's such a big deal that they weren't so forthcoming about the dossier because they could have just got the warrant without the dossier. But the thing is, they're saying here in the memo that McCabe himself testified to the House committee in December that no surveillance warrant would have been sought from the court, from the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, without the Steele dossier information. So the Steele dossier info does seem essential to the request to get a surveillance warrant on Trump campaign associate Carter Page, which is quite interesting. Quite interesting. Okay. One more paragraph left in this memo here, and then we're going to get to your comments. If you have comments, write to me on Twitter at Lookner, at Lookner. We're going to read your comments in a moment. We've been reading the memo here, and we thought that the thing that was best to do first, unlike the news networks who all got on there with their talking heads real quick and had to rush on the air with their talking heads, we said no. The first thing we're going to do is read this memo. We've literally been reading the whole thing and talking about it. We're almost at the end right here. This is the very end of the memo. So that's what we've done, and we want to get the news out. We don't want to start editorializing. We want to get the news out to you, and so that's what we've been doing. And I want to say thank you. We just got a very generous donation from Larry Whitaker, who gave $150. Wow, very nice of you, Larry. And he says, go with the facts. And that's all we're trying to do here at Right Side Broadcasting is just give you the facts. We don't want to give you spin. We want to give you the facts. So that's what we've been doing here. We got one more paragraph in the memo, but thank you very much, Larry, for the donation. That's what keeps us on your donations, so we really appreciate it. Okay. One more paragraph here, and then we'll get to your comments. Last paragraph of the memo. The Page FISA application also mentions information regarding fellow Trump campaign advisor George Papadopoulos, but there is no evidence of any cooperation or conspiracy between Page and Papadopoulos. The Papadopoulos information triggered the opening of an FBI counterintelligence investigation in late July 2016 by FBI agent Pete Strzok. Strzok was reassigned by the special counsel's office to FBI Human Resources for improper text messages with his mistress, FBI attorney Lisa Page, no known relation to Carter Page, where they both demonstrated a clear bias against Trump and in favor of Clinton, whom Strzok had also investigated. The Strzok-Lisa Page texts also reflect extensive discussions about the investigation, orchestrating leaks to the media, and include a meeting with Deputy Director McCabe to discuss an insurance policy against President Trump's election. Now, I'm not sure what this paragraph has to do with the rest of the memo. It says the Page FISA application also mentions information regarding Papadopoulos. The Papadopoulos info triggered the opening of an FBI counterintelligence investigation against by Strzok. Strzok was reassigned. Yeah, it is a little unclear. I mean, I'd have to go back and just from looking at this, it doesn't really seem here like this paragraph has much to do with the main point of the memo, because the main point of the memo is that the FBI and DOJ did improper stuff when they requested a warrant on Carter Page, a surveillance warrant on Carter Page. And this paragraph doesn't particularly have to do with that as I read it here. So I'm not going to linger on it. Maybe I'll look at it later and see some bigger connection. So that's the memo, guys. That's the memo. And it seems like the big criticisms here, if you could point out like what the main criticisms are of the FBI and the DOJ, if I could sum up what the biggest criticism is, it says, this memo says, it claims, look, The FBI and the DOJ went to get a surveillance warrant on somebody who had been working for the Trump campaign during the campaign, October 2016, an American citizen, Carter Page. And obviously that's a sensitive kind of warrant because, if you're listening in on Carter Page, he could be talking to Trump campaign people. He could be talking about the campaign. So the FBI and the DOJ request this warrant on American citizen Carter Page, and they were doing so because they believed that the reason for requesting the warrant is they believed he could be a Russian agent, that he was working for the Russians. And to get this warrant, they had to present info to the judge, suggesting to the judge that there's probable cause to think that Carter Page is a Russian agent. And according to the memo, an essential part of this information came from the Trump dossier, which was a piece of opposition research compiled by Christopher Steele, who was hired by Fusion GPS. And this Trump dossier was paid for in part by the Hillary Clinton campaign and the DNC. And the memo says even though this Trump dossier info about Carter Page was an essential part of the info they presented to the judge to get this warrant on Carter Page, which they got. And they also got 3 extensions of this warrant running into 2017. So they got like a year's worth of surveillance warrants on Carter Page. But they used the Trump dossier to get this warrant. But what the memo says, a couple big charges it makes, is that the FBI and the DOJ knew that this Trump dossier was being paid for by the Hillary Clinton campaign and the DNC, and they never told the judge that. And this memo also says the FBI knew that this Trump dossier was not corroborated, was not verified. They were in the early stages of corroborating it. They had not corroborated. It's saying they didn't. Now, I believe it's suggesting that they didn't mention that to the judge. Does it say that? I'm guessing it. I don't know what they said about the corroboration. Maybe they just never mentioned any of the corroboration. But it's sort of implied in here that they shouldn't have been using this Trump dossier, given that it wasn't highly corroborated when they were using it. They also say they have evidence that Christopher Steele, who compiled the Trump dossier, who authored the Trump dossier, which was being used in this warrant application, they're saying they have evidence. The FBI and DOJ had evidence that Christopher Steele was biased against Trump, and they never told that to the judge. So there's a lot of stuff that the memo says the FBI and the DOJ should have told the judge when they were requesting a warrant that they didn't tell the judge. That would have made the judge less likely to grant the warrant on Carter Page. And I believe the overall implication here is that you're supposed to you're supposed to take from this. I would think that the people who authored the memo want to be taken from this memo is that the reason that the FBI and the DOJ held back this information is they wanted to get this warrant on Carter Page to, I don't know, spy on the Trump campaign or for anti-Trump reasons. That seems to be kind of an undercurrent here. Although I don't believe this ever actually says that. I don't know if this actually says, does it say that there was bias, that the reason they did all of this is because of bias against Trump? I don't know. Does it actually say that? It says our concerns our findings raise concerns with the legitimacy and legality of certain DOJ and FBI interactions with the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court and represent a troubling breakdown of legal processes established to protect the American people from abuses related to the FISA process. So this memo, as far as I'm aware, never says, well, the reason the FBI and DOJ did this bad stuff is because they were trying to work against Trump. But I think in a lot of the people we hear talking about this, like a lot of people in Congress and a lot of media people who agree with the memo, think that the memo shows that the DOJ and the FBI had it out for President Trump. But it doesn't explicitly say that in the memo. All right, well, we've gone through the memo. I want to hear what you think about it. What do you think about this memo? We've gone through it. Write to me on Twitter, @Lookner. Let me know what you think about it. I want to get to your comments right now. And a big thanks again to our moderators who are moderating the chat room. Gleno and Common Sense on the website, JC and Webster here in the chat room. And thanks to those people who made donations. We are viewer supported, so if you like our coverage, if you like having an alternative to the mainstream media, Your donations keep us on the air, so you can donate to us at the bottom of the YouTube chat. Click on the $sign at the bottom of the YouTube chat, or go to rsbn.tv/donate, rsbn.tv/donate. I want to get to your messages, and I also want to do a quick check and make sure I haven't missed any news about this while we've been on the air. So let me just do a real quick check. What does this say? Adam Schiff, who's a Democrat, the leading Democrat in the House Intelligence Committee, according to Francis Townsend, Adam Schiff's response to the release of the House Intel Committee memo, key line that memo suggests that FBI failed to alert court as to Steele's potential political motivation or the political motivations of those who hired him, but this is not accurate. Well, I don't think that's the key. I don't know if that's the key line of the memo. Anyways, let me get, there's a response from Schiff. We'll look at that in a little bit. I want to get to your comments though. Let me know I want to hear what you think about this before I get to stories. Let's see here. Caden says, Steve, do you think Hillary has committed any crimes in this procuring of the Steele dossier and obtaining of the FISA warrant? Do you think do you think she will see justice when? Surely at least Steele will need to be arrested for his role. Well, I don't see any. First of all, I don't believe it's a crime for the Clinton campaign to pay for opposition research, so that wouldn't be a crime. Hillary Clinton she was not involved in requesting this surveillance warrant, so that wouldn't be a crime there. And I don't know what crime Christopher Steele would have done. I mean, he was paid to supply information. That's not a crime in itself. And maybe he had an agreement with the FBI that he wasn't going to talk to media sources, and then he did, but that I don't believe would be a crime. It might be violating like a handshake agreement he had with the FBI. So off the top of my head, I don't see crimes from either Steele or Hillary here. John Stanton writes in, Steve, Jim Jordan thinks Strzok may have dressed up or reformatted the dossier text to look like legitimate FBI intel. I know nothing about it. I haven't heard that before, so thanks, John, for writing in. What I really wish we had, the application. It would be great if we had the 50 or 60 or whatever page application that the FBI and the DOJ gave to the judge to get this warrant on Carter Page, because then you could really assess what did they have, what intel did they present to the judge, how much of it was the Trump dossier, what exactly did they say about the Trump dossier. But we can't assess that without that document. Now, I'm assuming we'll never see it because presumably that document contains a lot of FBI classified intelligence, and DOJ, maybe it contains FBI surveillance, and you don't want to reveal sources and intelligence. But it's very hard to assess this whole thing without that key document, the big document they gave to the judge when they were requesting the warrant on Carter Page. But we don't have that, and I don't think we'll ever see it. Let's see here. JC, one of our moderators, says, great job covering the memo, Steve. Thank you. Now I want swift justice. Oh, somebody wanted me to post, if you want the link to the memo, you can actually find it on my Twitter. I'll show you. I posted it right as it came out. So I posted on my Twitter, @Lookner. Here's the memo link. It originally wasn't working, but then it was working. So if you go to my Twitter and you click on the Justin Sink tweet, and then you click on that link right there, the memo will come up. It takes a second, though. So it'll take like a minute or so. I'm not going to wait here, but it definitely will come up because it came up when I did it. If it's not coming up, let me know, but it definitely came up when I did it. That's how I got it, as I clicked on that link. So go to my Twitter, @Lookner, for the memo link if you want it. All right, we're taking your comments on this memo. Write to me on Twitter, @Lookner. Murph writes in, who do you think will get fired over this memo? Shane Ski from Racine. As I've said before, I do think it's possible that Rosenstein will get fired. And let me explain why. Hold on one second. I just want to check one thing here before I get into that. So here's why I think it's possible Rosenstein will get fired. So Rosenstein is the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein. Trump, as I see it, has two big beefs with Rod Rosenstein. One, Rod Rosenstein is the one that appointed the special counsel, that appointed Mueller in the first place without consulting President Trump. So after Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General, recused himself from the investigation into collusion with Russia and between Russia and the Trump campaign, it was now Rod Rosenstein's turn to be in charge of that investigation. Then President Trump fired Comey, and he mentioned that part of his reason for firing Comey was a memo that was co-authored by Rod Rosenstein. So at that point, Rosenstein felt that a special prosecutor, that he couldn't lead the investigation anymore, and he felt a special prosecutor was needed to, in a neutral way, investigate the Russia collusion stuff. So Rosenstein appointed the special counsel. President Trump not happy with that, obviously. And this memo says that Rosenstein, when he was Deputy Attorney General, signed off on one of the extensions, at least one of the extensions of the surveillance warrant request on Carter Page, a person who had been working for the Trump campaign. So Rosenstein signed off on it. So he had to sign off on this for this surveillance to be extended. So for those reasons, given that Rosenstein appointed Mueller and that Rosenstein is mentioned in this memo as one of the people who signed off on extending the surveillance warrant on Carter Page, President Trump presumably is not a big fan of Rod Rosenstein at this point, or has a serious beef with him. Also, check this out. As Caitlin Collins from CNN posted a little while ago today, President Trump was asked whether he has confidence in Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein or if he plans to fire him. You figure that one out. So to me, I could see the president firing Rosenstein. Now, if he does fire Rosenstein, it'll be a very big deal because technically speaking, Rosenstein is overseeing the Mueller investigation. Technically speaking, Rosenstein is the supervisor of the Mueller investigation. Now, what he does is he doesn't interfere in the investigation. He just, but like if Mueller was ever going to be fired, Rosenstein is technically the person who would do it. So he's technically the overseer of the investigation, even though it's like an independent investigation. But still, if President Trump ever fired Rosenstein, a lot of people would say he just fired the person who's technically overseeing the special counsel investigation. So it would be a huge deal if he fired Rosenstein, a huge deal. But I could see it happening. And look, you can see the quote right there. Caitlin Collins said, President Trump said, you figure that one out when asked if he has confidence in Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein or if he plans to fire him. Real quick, thank you for the donations. John Cordisco says, great work, guys. Thank you, John. John Austin says, thanks, RSBN. Thank you for the donations. Those keep us on the air. And I'm a Carrot gave a donation. I'm a Carrot. I can't read that comment on the air. YouTube will have a big problem with that. But thank you, I'm a Carrot. So we are taking your comments. We're taking your comments here on the memo. Write to me. Let me know what you think. I'm at @Lookner on Twitter. @Lookner on Twitter. Share the Blue wanted me to look at a tweet by Republican Congressman Steve King. So let me show you that. Let's see here. Hang on a second. It was here, and now I'm looking for it, and I have to find it again. Here it is. So Steve King, Republican Congressman, posted this. Key in the memo released are names, some deeply biased, who signed off on the FISA warrant: Comey, McCabe, Yates, Bonte, and Rosenstein. Memo now commands FISA warrant requests be released to Congress. The statement that the FBI and the DOJ were weaponized holds up pretty well. Does the memo say that? Does the memo doesn't request that? Maybe the cover letter requested it. Let me look at. We never looked at the cover letter. So the cover letter we never read. We read the memo. Says blah, 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 blah. January 29th, 19, House Select Committee voted to disclose the memo. Here, this is the memo. Fine. It talks about the president declassifying the memo. Oh, this is the cover letter from McGahn talking about the White House declassifying the memo. I don't remember. We read through this whole memo. I never saw the memo say we should declassify the FISA warrant request. I think what Steve King means here is, given what's in the memo, that implies that the FISA warrant requests should be released to Congress. I don't think Steve King is saying the memo said that should happen, because the memo didn't say that should happen. When we read the memo, I didn't. If it was there, I missed it. We read the whole thing. And Steve King says the statement that the FBI and DOJ were weaponized holds up pretty well. So that's Steve King's take, Republican congressman. Jay Bones writes in, jail them all. Now, I don't know if crimes were committed here, though. I mean, so look, if you agree with the memo, you might think, well, the FBI and the DOJ should have given more information to the judge than they did. I don't know if that's a crime. I'm not familiar with the law on that, with if you intentionally give a judge less info than you have, is that a crime? I don't know. I genuinely don't know. Let's see here. Chirhaka JCBV writes in, the judge was wrong, period. He did not review the document, and he put himself in legal jeopardy by approving the FISA warrant and not knowing it was based on opposition research. That's his job, to verify applications, period. You know, Chirhaka, I have to respectfully disagree with you. The judge's job is not to verify the applications. The judge's job is just to rule. The judge is busy enough. The judge's job is just to rule on the application, on whether, given the information, that application is warranted. Now, if the judge sees something in the memo, like, let's say the judge saw a memo, let's say a warrant application says, like, a grasshopper told me this. Well, the judge is obviously going to look at that and say, well, grasshoppers can't talk. I have a problem with this memo. But the judge is not going to go and spend time confirming every source in the memo, and I don't think we should, even expect judges to do that. I mean, again, there has to be some responsibility placed on the people bringing the judge the information. It's the FBI and the DOJ. So I think we can't aside from obvious wrong, dubious things in a warrant application. I don't think judges are expected or should be expected to verify what's in the memo. And I certainly don't think the judge is in any legal jeopardy. And I would argue that if that's what's expected of the judge, to just look over the material, see that nothing seems obviously crazy about it, and just decide based on what's in the material the judge is presented with, then the judge is at no fault at all. So that's at least my take on it. But thank you for writing in, though. And the memo doesn't fault the judge. The memo says that the people didn't. The memo says the DOJ and FBI weren't as forthcoming as they should have been with information to the judge, but it never faults the judge. Sarah Homan says, how can we get our own copy of the memo? Go to my Twitter account, look about 3 tweets down, and you'll see I posted the link. Here, I'll show you again. Hang on. Here's my Twitter, @Lookner. I say, here's the memo link. There it is. So you go to it and you click on that link and you will get the memo. It might take a minute, but you'll get it. That's the link to the memo. Taking your comments here. I'm @Lookner on Twitter. Write to me. Let me know what you're thinking about all of this. Garrett says, maybe the memo indicates Papadopoulos was working for the FBI or the Clintons all the time. I don't believe it says that. We looked at the Papadopoulos passage, and I don't recall it saying anything like that. I was a little confused as to what the Papadopoulos mention is at the end of the memo, and I was a little confused about what that exactly had to do with the FISA warrant. But I didn't see anything there suggesting that he was working for the FBI or Carter Page or anything like that. Linda Belk says, I can't imagine Trump allowing Rosenstein to retain his position after reading about his part in using the Steele dossier being used to spy on Carter Page. So, Linda, I think a lot of people out there agree with you and think Donald Trump might fire Rod Rosenstein. Now, a question I have is that is if President Trump is thinking about firing Rosenstein, would he do it sooner rather than later, like right in the aftermath of the memo? So, hard to say. We'll keep an eye on it for you. CNN is showing a tweet from Nancy Pelosi. Hey, let's look at that. I wonder what Nancy Pelosi has to say about the memo. I wonder if she approves of it or disapproves of it. Can you guess? She says, she released a statement and she says, President Trump has surrendered his constitutional responsibility as commander-in-chief by releasing Nunes' unredacted classified memo. His decision undermines our national security and is a bouquet to his friend Putin. We're not going to read the whole Pelosi statement, but if you want to, it's there. You can go to her Twitter and read it. We're reading some more of your comments here. Mark Warner, Democratic senator, says this unprecedented public disclosure of classified material during an ongoing criminal investigation is dangerous to our national security. Now, we just read the memo on the air. And it seems that, so Pelosi and Mark Warner, it seems like the Democratic talking point here is that the memo shouldn't have been released because it contains classified material. We just read tweets from Pelosi and Mark Warner saying that. Now, I will say, we read the memo. Is there that much huge classified material in there? I looked over the memo and I certainly didn't see it seemed like there was, I don't know what was classified in here, but there was not a lot of there was not stuff about Russians or about foreign countries. There was stuff about what McCabe said to the House committee. There was some report about Steele talking to somebody in the DOJ. There was reports about what was in the FISA warrant application. But I don't know. I feel the problem is, here's my point. When Mark Warner sends out this tweet or Nancy Pelosi sends out the tweet and they say, the president messed up totally in releasing all this classified info, I almost feel like those tweets are geared toward people who will never read the memo. Because when you read something like this, you're like, oh my gosh, there was all this info there about other countries and ISIS and big national secrets that was in this memo and President Trump just released it. But when you read the memo, you don't see any of that kind of classified info in there. Now, I'm not saying there are not reasons to read. There are very well reasons to not release classified info. So my point is just when Democrats make these tweets, I feel like they act like it feels to me geared toward people who don't read the memo and don't. Because if you read the memo, this makes it look like there's it's like we released nuclear codes or stuff about where people are hiding or the names of, sources or something like that. And we read over the memo and I certainly didn't see anything like that. Some of it's classified apparently. And I certainly think there's a cost to releasing classified information, but I don't know if there isn't some alarmism going on here. I don't know if it seems like the talking point for the Democrats might be this classified info is dangerous to release. President Trump should have never released all this classified info. But to me, if you read the memo, it's not like you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he released that classified info. Just my take. Okay. Let's read some more of your comments. Bob See Your Uncle writes in, hey, Steve, typical Democrat MO. They declare that the memo is irrelevant and not that important, yet mainstream media is having a coronary. Busted. Edward Briley writes in, I feel there is a lot more to this. I want to know about the British intel agency already tapping president's phones from Maryland before the FISA warrant was issued. I know nothing about that happening, if it happened. From my understanding, the FBI had to get the FISA warrant to cover this up. I know nothing about that, Edward. If I hear anything about it, I'll let you know. Sorry, I need a little chapstick here. We've been talking for so long. Excuse me while I put on chapstick. All right, better. David Smart said, I already downloaded the memo. Thanks, Steve. Ace says, so many of these people need to be arrested, locked up, and possibly suffer the death penalty for their crimes. Again, I am not sure what, if any, crimes have been committed here. There very well could have been improper conduct committed here. I don't know if there have been any crimes committed, as I talked about earlier. That is not... Hey, no name, that is not Julian Assange's Twitter you just sent me a tweet from. Ophelia says, Steve, in comparison to Watergate, what will be the consequences for the abuse of power when coming to the 2016 election? Oh, I don't think there are going to be very big consequences of this for the election. You mean 2008? I think you mean to the next election, 2018. Because I think, look, the thing about this memo is it's not like... If you're going to understand, it's kind of complex. I mean, we just read it. And to really understand what the memo is saying, you got to know this backstory about Christopher Steele and the dossier and paid for by the DNC and the warrant process and the warrant on Carter Page and who Carter Page was and who the Deputy Attorney General is. And I honestly think the mass of Americans don't really have maybe the time or the interest, or they don't follow all these details. And I think for most Americans, they'll know maybe this memo is coming out, but they're not really following it that closely and they don't really know the details. And you can't really sum it up. Like you can't say with Watergate, it's like the president, was working with people to break into a Democratic National Committee office, and then he lied about it. I mean, that's a pretty, anybody can understand that. So I don't really think this is going to affect the election that much. I mean, maybe it'll motivate the Republican base some, but I just think, I don't think it'll affect it that much because I think for a lot of people who don't really follow politics that closely, it's not that easily understandable, and they might be a little confused about the whole thing. And personally, I mean, I think a lot of Americans, I think this is a story when you get into the Nunes and the memo stuff. A lot of Americans probably don't know who Devin Nunes is. They'd really know nothing about this memo. And this is a reason I was saying on my Twitter yesterday, I said the Democrats... I'm surprised, I didn't say this specifically in my Twitter, but I said something related. But I'm surprised the Democrats made such a big deal about this memo. I said on my Twitter, if the Democrats had just not freaked out about the memo and just said, look, we know this memo is coming out. We totally disagree with it. It's inaccurate. We'll make a statement on it when it comes out. And just that was it. I swear this wouldn't have been nearly as big a deal because the Democrats have been acting like this memo is the hugest deal. And President Trump, you just saw Nancy Pelosi, President Trump has abdicated his constitutional responsibility. They have been made such a big deal about this memo that it's been on the news nonstop for a week. And I really think that the memo itself, given that it's kind of esoteric and it's a little hard to understand, I think if they had just left it alone, a lot of people in the country wouldn't have really even cared about it that much. I'm sure people on the right would have, but they were going to care anyway. So I think that given that, the memo's kind of a complex thing and it's sort of an insidery thing, I'm surprised the Democrats just didn't really pay much attention to it because I think it was something that wasn't going to have that much traction among the general public. And I feel like it's gained a lot of attention in the general public just because the Democrats have made such a huge deal about it. So I think the Democrats made a huge mistake in building up the memo because they made it seem like some big deal and got so much more interest in it when there wouldn't have been that interest. So that's just my personal view, but I'm surprised they did because I just think it's such a complex thing that most Americans don't really follow or feel like they have the time to follow. And we read the memo and it's kind of hard to figure out what's going on when you actually read the memo slowly, and it took us like an hour to read it. So, that's just the thought I have. Tony Rose says Jeff Sessions should be the one to fire Rod Rosenstein. Now, I think President Trump technically has to decide to fire him, I think. Susan Farley says this was albeit the most prominent one, just one of many abuses of power and violations of the FBI's fiduciary duties. There are more instances when, and always, there are Clintons involved. FBI and judges screwed, steered, covered up, full-stopped investigations for benefit of Clinton/DN. I think you mean DNC. We're taking your comments on the air here. We are covering the secret GOP memo released. If you want to see it read, we read the whole thing at the beginning of the stream. So you can go to the beginning of the stream, just rewind it and watch it. Thank you so much to our moderators who've been moderating the chat for us. Webster, JC, Barbara, really appreciate everybody moderating the chat. And hello to everybody on Facebook as well as on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube and click the notifications bell so you get notified when we come on the air with these live breaking news videos. We do it all the time. Also follow us on Facebook at Right Side Broadcasting, on Twitter at RSB Network. I am on Twitter at Lookner. You can follow me for breaking news coverage and write to me on Twitter if you have comments on this. We are reading comments about your feelings about the memo on the air at Lookner. Write to me on Twitter at Lookner. And also, again, a big thank you to people who've donated today. We can only do this coverage because you donate. You keep us on the air. We're a small company. We're viewer supported. We really think we bring you an alternative to the mainstream media, something different, where we don't preach to you. We don't yell at you. We just give you the facts and let you know what to think. And when we're editorializing, we editorialize once in a while. But, you know, we tell you we're editorializing. And look, I just told you I gave you a point of view that a Democrat might have given you about 5 minutes ago, and I explained why I think the Democrats made a mistake. But I was giving this from like, I think that's something a Democrat might say, like, maybe we shouldn't have publicized this so much, because I just made the point that I didn't think that a lot of Americans even knew what this memo really was, even now. So, but you know, we really try to give you the news and don't give you an agenda and let you decide what to think. So if you like that coverage, please consider donating, because your donations keep us on the air. You can donate by going to the bottom of the YouTube chat, click on the little dollar sign at the bottom of the YouTube chat, or go to rsbn.tv/donate, rsbn.tv/donate. All right, I want to get to some more of your messages. That's what I want to do. Let's see here. Garrett says, didn't Bruce Orr and his wife commit a crime by using fake info and hiding the fact that Mrs. Orr worked for Fusion GPS? So you're asking about a part of this memo, which I'll call up here, and says, Deputy Attorney General Bruce Orr's wife was employed by Fusion GPS to assist in the cultivation of opposition research on Trump. Orr later provided the FBI with all of his wife's opposition research. The Orr's relationship with Steele and Fusion GPS was inexplicably concealed from the FISA, from the FISA court. I don't know the backstory of Orr. Who are you saying he hid it from? He hid it from the DOJ. He didn't hide it from the judge because he wasn't speaking to the judge. So it sounds like you're saying, did Orr and his wife commit a crime by hiding the fact Mrs. Orr worked for Fusion GPS? I'm not sure who you're saying they hid it from, and I'd need to know that to know whether whether a crime was committed. And I'm not sure what the fake info you're talking about is. So if Orr was working for Fusion GPS, which she was, to assist in the cultivation of the Trump dossier, we don't know that info is fake. All we know about it is that it's unconfirmed. So on the face of it, I don't see any crime. I would just need to know a lot more. And I need to know a lot more about the law, too. Let's see here. Let's see. Cannibal Holocaust End Titles writes in, Memo is not a smoking gun, but it's ruffled enough feathers that people on both sides will want more info released. There is more to be revealed. Memo is not a smoking gun, but it's ruffled enough feathers that people on both sides will want more info released. There is more to be revealed. Dems will need to provide proof of what they took to FISA courts to show they had something. Thank you, Cannibal Holocaust. That's an interesting suggestion you make. I'm going to talk about it more in a second. I just want to check one quick thing here. Let me check one quick thing. and then I'll get to your comment. Okay. So what you're saying, Cannibal Holocaust, is that given what the memo says, the Democrats are going to want to release material, the Democrats or the FBI and DOJ are going to want to release, you think, more about what they actually gave to the judge. Now, I don't know if they can because a lot of that's classified. See, the thing is, I'm guessing part of what they gave to the judge might have been like surveillance. Let's say there was CIA surveillance or there's some sort of surveillance. There might have been FBI surveillance on some Russians while they were in the country, okay? And say those Russians talked to Carter Page. So say the FBI taped a meeting like in early 2016 between Carter Page and a Russian. And let's say they had that, and that's in the memo. That's in the warrant application. They're not going to want to release that because that's very sensitive, sensitive material. It's material with the conversation of like a Russian official in it. So there very well could be very sensitive kind of stuff like that in the warrant application about Carter Page that the DOJ and the FBI and the Democrats don't want to release. And maybe there's information about there that could really compromise sources and stuff. So it's possible that the FBI and the DOJ is thinking, man, we'd really love to release the warrant application because it would show just how much info we have on Carter Page, but we can't release it to you. And that stinks because there's this memo out there and we think we can counter the memo, but we're not allowed to release the FISA application. So they're in a bit of a tough place if they think that the warrant application could, in theory, benefit their side because they're not going to want to release all the information in the warrant application. And I'd also be interested. Now, the Democrats have written a response to this memo. The Democrats in the House Intelligence Committee. The House Intelligence Committee, from what I saw, didn't approve the Democrats releasing that now. But I read that they said that they wanted the whole House to read it first. So it seemed, from what I was reading, it's possible we will get at some point the House Intelligence Committee response memo to this memo, and we'll see what that has to say. Let's see here. Deborah Herzog says, actually not a question but a statement. Would you read the Strzok memo on the 4th page again? I am sure it must be important if it was included. Yeah, I'll read it again. I didn't really see the relevance to the point here. There were definitely some things in this memo that seemed tangential to the main point of the memo. Let's see. I think the Strzok info you wanted me to read. Oh, is that section 5? Yeah, I'll read section 5 again. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because I feel it's kind of just, I can't figure out what big relevance it has to the main point of the memo. It says the Page FISA application also mentions information regarding fellow Trump campaign advisor George Papadopoulos, but there's no evidence of any cooperation or conspiracy between Page and Papadopoulos. The Papadopoulos information triggered the opening of an FBI counterintelligence investigation in July 2016 by FBI agent Pete Strzok. Strzok was reassigned by the special counsel's office to FBI Human Resources for improper text messages with his mistress, FBI attorney Lisa Page, no known relation to Carter Page, where they had both demonstrated a clear bias against Trump and in favor of Clinton, whom Strzok had also investigated. The Strzok-Lisa Page texts also reflect extensive discussions about the investigation, orchestrating links to the media, and including a meeting with Deputy Director McCabe to discuss an insurance policy against President Trump's election. It seems to me like this paragraph is just put in there to show that Strzok was biased against Trump and that Strzok was working at the FBI, but I don't really see what that has to do in a big way with the main point of the application about the warrant request for surveillance on Carter Page. Karen L. Berry wanted me to read John McCain's tweet, so I will check that out for you. It says, the latest attacks on the FBI and Department of Justice serve no American interests, no parties, no presidents, only Putin. So McCain thinks that the Republicans should not be attacking the FBI and the DOJ like this, and they're not helpful. Let me just do a quick news check here. Mark Knoller reports, in response to today's release of the memo, the FBI stands by its statement on Wednesday declaring we have grave concerns about material omissions of fact that fundamentally impact the memo's accuracy. See, again, it's so problematic here because if we what the FBI and the DOJ and Democrats are saying is, part of what they're saying is the Republican memo cherry-picked facts. They cherry-picked parts of the warrant. There are material omissions of fact in the memo. But to know whether it's true that there were really important omissions of fact in the memo and how important those omissions were, we would really need to see the original warrant request presented to the judge and to see the different requests for extensions presented to the judge and hear and see exactly what info the FBI and the DOJ had on Carter Page and they told the judge. Until we see that, it's one memo's word versus the other side's word. And we just can't tell. The FBI seems to be saying, look, if you guys knew all the facts, you'd see that this memo is biased and its charges don't really have much to them. But the only way we can tell for sure if the FBI is right is to actually know the facts, and we don't have the facts. And I don't think we're going to get them because I don't think that the warrant requests for Carter Page surveillance are ever going to be released. So it makes it very hard to assess the accusations of both sides. Now, I will say there is a legitimate question raised in the memo, no matter what the facts are, which is, why didn't the FBI and DOJ tell the judge that the Trump dossier which they were using in their warrant application, was being paid for by the DNC and the Clinton campaign? Why didn't they mention that to the judge? I don't know. Maybe they have some response to that, but what we haven't heard, we keep hearing as responses from the FBI and the DOJ and people on the left, well, there were facts omitted, and Democrats, there were facts omitted, but it would be nice if we had a specific response to that specific charge. Just saying there were facts omitted doesn't really give us a specific response. Let me get to some more of your comments here. Hamfried says, what in the memo is secret? The underlying info could be, but I've seen more secret writing on the toilet door when I was deployed. Watch the chapstick. Don't go all in like Joe Kennedy. Hey, so Hamfried, yeah, as I was saying before, I agree with you in that there are Democrats like Mark Warner and Nancy Pelosi complaining as if all of these huge secrets were released in this memo. And when you read the memo, to me, it's kind of hard to figure out what exactly is secret. I mean, maybe the fact that some McCabe testimony to a House committee, maybe certain things about Christopher Steele, but it doesn't seem like a lot of important foreign intelligence secrets were revealed in this. Now, I'm open to be convinced that I'm wrong about this, but I don't know. Read the memo yourself and see if you think there's a lot of big secrets in there that are revealed, classified info. Douglas Krantz write in, Steve, there is no top secret info in that 4-page memo. Nothing in it breaks the nation's security. The Dems are trying to blow smoke up the backside of the Americans. The Dems are using smoke and mirrors because they got caught. Reagan Better says Comey just released a statement. Why don't you send me the link, Reagan Better? I like that you messaged me, but how about sending me the link? Here we go. Here's a statement from James Comey on his Twitter. That's it. Dishonest and misleading memo wrecked the House Intel Committee, destroyed trust with intelligence community, damaged relationship with FISA court, and inexcusably exposed classified investigation of an American citizen. For what? DOJ and FBI must keep doing their jobs. So again, we have somebody in opposition to the memo saying it's dishonest and misleading. I want to know exactly why it's dishonest and misleading. Maybe it is dishonest and misleading, but all we're hearing, a lot of what we're hearing from the FBI and DOJ is that material was left out, it's dishonest and misleading, but they don't tell us what the left out material and the dishonest and misleading stuff is, and that's a little weird to me. Hold on, I'm just writing something down here. So I wish we had more actual, rather than just charges that there's stuff left out and it's dishonest and misleading. I wish we had actual arguments as to why it's dishonest and misleading. That would be more effective, I think. Cannibal Holocaust says, with you on all counts, I believe the intent of the memo was to put pressure on the investigation to know if there's anything to the FISA apps. We don't need another memo. We need charges brought. Poop or get off the pot is what I believe the GOP is trying to push. Now, I haven't said anyone's pushing for charges. I haven't seen evidence of crimes necessarily here. I don't know if it's a crime to not tell a judge everything you know about information. But, look, some people say that the reason that they think this memo was put out was to undermine the Russia investigation. Certainly a possible reason. I don't know. So that's just, I can't read the minds of the House Intelligence Committee and say why exactly they put this memo out. Maybe they had a bunch of reasons. Edward Briley says, I wonder if the judge that issued the FISA warrant was questioned. I do not know, Edward. Jeremy Miller says, the vague facts being released will cause the outrage necessary for Trump to justifiably release all the memo in its entirety, which he can do. I think you mean the entire warrant application, because he released the memo. The memo didn't have any redactions in it. Let the doubters keep screaming. Hang on one second. Who posted the thing about the misleading info? Oh, the FBI said that too. Let me just check out the news here and get you more news updates on this. What is this? So Shane Harris says, I'm trying to understand this. The memo acknowledges that it was info about the George Papadopoulos that triggered the FBI's investigation in 2016 that refutes the widespread allegation that the Steele dossier was the impetus for the Papadopoulos investigation. Where is that at the end? Oh, all right. That's a... I guess what that person said is that this says the Papadopoulos info was not from this. There was the unrelated question as to whether the Papadopoulos investigation was based on the Steele dossier, and the person who tweeted was saying that this memo seems to suggest it wasn't based on the Steele dossier. Anyways, that's a tangential concern at this point. Oh, now this happened. Once again, YouTube manages, my broadcast manages to freeze up once in a while, but I'll just leave it on the memo for now. So here's the memo. Let me check some other news sources here and see what I come up with. I do know that the logo has stopped moving, by the way. I'm aware of that. There's a tweet from John Kasich, which I'll show you. Or a statement from John Kasich. It says, John Kasich's statement, posted by ABC News. The FBI and Department of Justice are important to our country. While we must maintain oversight of these institutions, it has to be done in a bipartisan manner, not for partisan reasons or political gain. The manner in which this was done was wrong and does a disservice to our country. It is very serious when a foreign power engages in sophisticated efforts to impact not just our elections, but elections throughout the world. Make no mistake, Russia is not an ally. They are not our friends, and you're not going to be able to see this, shouldn't be treated as such. The independent investigation into Russia's meddling in our election must continue unimpeded by outside forces from either Congress or the president. So we've seen some complaints about, hang on a second, let me go back here. That's what I want to go back to. We've seen some complaints here about the memo. I wonder if we'll hear anything more from President Trump tonight about this. You know, he stated before, when he was asked, after he'd released the memo, but before the memo came out, he was asked, does he have confidence in Rosenstein, or might he fire Rosenstein? And he said, you figure that out. So, which didn't sound like he didn't have confidence in Rosenstein, but we'll have to see if anything happens with that. Hey, the man in plaque made a donation and said, evidence suppression can be legal and illegal. It could refer to a scenario like when a prosecutor improperly or intentionally hides evidence that he or she is legally obligated to show the defense. Yeah, so thank you for the donation too, man in black. There is this question as to whether, if it's true that the FBI and the DOJ didn't tell the judge when they requested the warrant that about the origin of some of the material that they were including in the warrant application. I guess it's possible that that's illegal. I don't know the exact law on that. I'm guessing maybe it has to not just be an honest mistake, and it has to be intentional that they didn't show the information and they had to be doing it for a certain reason. But I don't know. I can't confirm that. I am not an expert in that law stuff. Interesting post here by Jeremy. Where is it here? Jeremy Diamond. And sorry, I'm having a little issue where I can't go full screen to myself, so I sort of have to do this way, where I Google the person I'm looking up on Twitter and show it to you that way. No, that's the wrong Jeremy Diamond. There are two Jeremy Diamonds who are verified in reporters. Oh, no, here it is. It's the right Jeremy Diamond. Jeremy Diamond from, I believe, CNN says, beyond the debate about the legitimacy of this memo and questions about the FBI's FISA applications, this could also serve to reignite a debate about secrecy and one-sidedness of FISA court proceedings that kicked up during the Patriot Act debate. And what he's talking about is that, so when the FBI and the DOJ go to request a surveillance memo on Carter Page, well, it's a little confusing. They basically, remember, no one from Carter Page's team is at the meeting. So there's no one making Carter Page's no one from Carter Page's team presents anything to the judge. So there's no one. When the FBI and DOJ request a FISA warrant on an American citizen, there's nobody representing the American citizen in front of the judge. And it makes sense in the sense of, well, if they had to tell the American citizen, we're requesting a warrant on you, then the American citizen's going to be more careful and not say anything compromising when in their communications. But at the same time, it presents this situation where, it's a secret. These applications are a secret process. They're classified, and the DOJ and FBI goes to a judge and requests surveillance on an American citizen. Nobody can really oversee it in the sense of it's classified. I mean, there's people at the DOJ and FBI who oversee it, but the public doesn't see this. There's no one presenting the other side against the warrant application because you can't tell person who might be surveyed that they might be surveyed. So that's what I think the one-sidedness that Jeremy Diamond is talking about there. Okay, just seeing if there's any more updates here in terms of news-wise about this. No Name wanted me to read Dick Durbin's tweet about this. Dick Durbin, Democratic senator, says, "We are headed down a dangerous path, using the Nunes memo as a pretext to fire Rod Rosenstein, Robert Mueller, or other DOJ leadership would clearly be an attempt to obstruct justice in the Russia investigation." So this seems to be, I don't know if this might be another Democrat talking point you hear a lot today, which is don't fire Rosenstein, because some people think that President Trump will, in the aftermath of this memo, fire Rod Rosenstein. So that's what Dick Durbin says. Cutter Wayne Leaf says, why does the Democrats in deep state personnel like Senator McCain keep saying that saying bad things about the FBI and the DOJ is not good? Then can't the same things be said about Congress members saying bad things about a sitting president, putting him in a bad light? It's a good question, Cutter Wayne Leaf. I mean, there is this, we're getting a lot of this, like, of comments like, we're seeing a lot of comments on the left and from Democrats and in the media saying things like this makes the FBI, this makes the U.S. look like a banana republic, and this is awful, and just like some really awful thing has happened in the House committee, pointing out something they think that the FBI and DOJ did wrong. Now, maybe the criticism here is, look, you should only really criticize the FBI and DOJ if there's some huge wrong thing they did, because it doesn't look good to have the government questioning the FBI and the DOJ. Maybe that's the argument. I don't know. And it undermines maybe the confidence of people in the FBI and DOJ, so you don't want to do that unless it's warranted. Maybe that's the argument that's underlying all of this. But what you're saying is, well, what's the difference between Congress saying bad things about the president? If they think it's fine for Congress to say all these bad things about the president, why is it not okay for the House Intel Committee to say some bad things about the FBI and DOJ? Reasonable question. You ask, Cutter Wayne Leaf. KC2YKN wanted us to look at Adam Schiff's response. Now, I'll see how long it is. Hang on. What is this? Sorry, somebody just sent me a picture, and I want to make sure it's not a big deal of some sort. All right, I was looking up Adam Schiff on Twitter to get his response. All right, I don't know if I want to read all of this thing because it's going to take a long time. Let's go through it real quick. Hang on. I do want to go through some of it here just to see what it says. I won't read literally all of it because it would take a while, but let me just see what it says. Nunes' decision to release this memo is a shameful effort to discredit these institutions. They should have allowed the Democrats to release their memo. It was reckless to release this classified information. So it's saying it was reckless to release this classified information because potential intelligence sources might know their identities might be compromised. Fine. The Republican document mischaracterizes highly sensitive classified info. It fails to provide context and information. Ignores how and why the FBI initiated the special counsel's continued the counterintelligence investigation. So again, it says there's not context here, but it doesn't tell you what the missing context is. It says it ignores information, but it doesn't tell you what the information it ignores is. As the minority memo makes clear, the charges aren't true, but we don't have the minority memo, so we can't see it. He keeps saying in this response, we explain why the Republican memo is flawed in our own memo, but you can't, but they're not letting you see our own memo yet. So we can't tell what his argument is because we can't see the Democratic memo yet. Hang on, let me get you the second part of this. Here is the second part of it. The first part wasn't very enlightening just because it basically says, we explain all of our problems with this in our memo, which you can't see yet. The second part of the Schiff response says, authors of the GOP memo would like to leave the country, blah, 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 blah. This ignores the inconvenient fact the investigation did not begin with or arise from Christopher Steele or the dossier, and that the investigation would persist on the basis of the wholly independent evidence. So this is saying that the memo, the authors of the memo want you to think the whole investigation about Russia began with the dossier, but that actually didn't happen, although the memo doesn't say that. The memo just talks about the warrant that was requested on Carter Page, and it says that the dossier was essential to requesting that warrant. But Adam Schiff is saying that he thinks Republicans are trying to imply that this memo shows that the whole Russia investigation is based on the dossier, and he says that's not the case. But it's not really the point of the memo, though, at least as the memo is written. Then it talks about the Papadopoulos thing, which seems a little tangential. The Papadopoulos part of the memo seemed a bit tangential to the memo. So FBI failed to alert the court as to Mr. Steele's potential motivation. These are but a few of the mischaracterizations. So it says that the memo mischaracterized the FISA application, but it says there are many more set out in the Democratic response. So this response is kind of unhelpful in telling us what's wrong, according to the Democrats, with the memo, because it keeps saying, well, this is wrong with the memo, and we explain it in our memo. This is wrong with the memo, and we explain it in our memo. But we need to see the Democratic memo to know what the arguments are, because this response just keeps referring to the Democratic memo, which we haven't seen. It's a lapse in leadership by Nunes, and it's destructive. He has placed the FBI and DOJ under investigation and impaired the work of dedicated professionals to trying to keep our country safe. So, as I keep saying, we would be nice to actually hear specific arguments from the left and from the Democrats about what's wrong with the memo. And maybe we will eventually, but we haven't heard them yet. Jesse Lowe's writes in, woke American citizens know the FISA courts were kangaroo as they come. This only proves it and brings every other case brought before them into question. Jeremy Miller says, the full memo was not released. As I have said, all the facts, not memo. It will come out louder. Those claiming the initial memo, it will come out loud. The louder those get, claiming the initial memo is false. Oh, if you're talking about the changes Nunes made to the memo, I mean, those were not reportedly big changes he made between the time he presented the memo and between the time the House Intel Committee voted to release the memo and the time they sent the memo to Trump, there were some changes made to the memo that seemed kind of minor, but that's not a lot of I don't think that would be like a lot of facts released. I had read some of them were just like, editing changes, and some of them was a couple things I guess that the FBI didn't want in the memo. Maybe things that they thought would have compromised too much information. But I didn't get the impression that there were certainly major changes in the memo between the time the House Intel Committee approved it and the time President Trump got it. That's at least my understanding. Edward Briley says, after reading what Pelosi and Warner had to say, it makes me wonder if I were to write a fake story on you and I put my name on it, the DOJ FBI would present it to a FISA court to get your phone tapped. Is that the secret info they were talking about? Well, you're saying like when Pelosi and Warner say that there was secret info in this memo that should not have been released, what is it? And I honestly don't know. The info about how the FISA court works was public, so I don't think the way the FISA court works, the FISA warrant court works, was secret info. I just got a message from Karen Berry. Says it says right here in the memo the Steele's report is what the FISA warrant was based on. It doesn't say that. It says one of the pieces of evidence about Carter Page that the warrant request was based on was the Steele memo, and it was essential to that request, but it doesn't say that it was the only thing in that request. And essential to the request could just mean, well, one key part of the request of 100 different, one key part of this info of 100 pieces of the info was the Steele came from the Steele dossier. So we don't know how much of the info about Carter Page in that initial FISA warrant request was from the Steele memo. But it didn't say it was that was all the information. It said it was essential to the request. That's what it said. Patrick Hostis says the leadership of the FBI is a cancer. I'm not sure if we can cut deep enough to save the patient. All right, we're going to stay on the air for a couple more minutes here, and then I'm going to end the stream. And we might very well come on later today. But we've been on for a little while now. I kind of want to just take a break and catch up on all of this stuff that's been going on. Coconuts gave a donation. Thank you, Coconuts, for your donation. I missed a couple donations. Cool 7 Songs made a donation. Said thank you, RSBN. Virgil888 made a donation. Thank you so much. And thank you, Webster, very much for letting me know about some of the donations I missed. I apologize. Lars Anderson made a donation and said lock them up. Let's see. Did I miss any others? I think I got all the others. Thank you, Webster. Thank you also, Webster, Real Frank, JC, Barbara, who have been moderating the chat room today, and Common Sense and Gleno on the website. Happy Camper made a donation, said, thanks so much for trusting your listeners. Just a little donation to see if payment works. Oh, it works, and it helps keep us on the air, so thank you. We are viewer supported. Your donations are what keep us on the air, so you can donate by going to, if you want to donate and help Right Side Broadcasting, you can go to the bottom of the YouTube chat, click on the dollar sign at the bottom of the YouTube chat, a little dollar symbol there, or go to rsbn.tv/donate, rsbn.tv/donate. You can even get free Right Side stuff like this RSBN mug by going to rsbn.tv/donate and joining our Patreon, setting up a monthly donation. All right. The one thing I forgot to do is check some of my emails. Justin RG writes in, if the roles here were reversed and this memo was about the RNC and Republicans, don't you think the outrage from the Democrats would be 10 times worse than what you are hearing from Republicans now? Well, it's possible, look, maybe if this was the other side and it was reversed, the Democrats would be releasing the memo and the Republicans would be complaining about it. Hard to say, but it's certainly possible. I don't think like when things get politicized like that, but it does happen. P-Cell writes in, how many... He says, thanks, Steve. So can we say the Democrat Party, the FBI, and the DOJ colluded against Donald Trump? I don't think we can say that from just this. First of all, we don't have the FISA. I would love to have the whole FISA warrant application to have full information on this. Second of all, all this, what the memo says is that the memo says the FBI and DOJ didn't present full info to the judge about their sources when requesting the surveillance on Carter Page. It doesn't say why they did that. look, they might say, look, we really thought Carter Page was a Russian agent, and we really thought getting this warrant was important for the safety of America. Now, if that was their motivation for trying their best to get the warrant, that's not collusion against President Trump. Somebody might, on the other hand, say, no, they wanted the warrant because they wanted to listen into the Trump campaign. I don't know. I don't have access to their motivations in doing it. So it's kind of hard to say. I don't think we can conclusively say now, though. Oh, it's definitely the case that the FBI and the DOJ were concluding against Trump. I mean, you can draw your own conclusions about this, but we have imperfect information right now. PCell also says, how many Democrats already came out speaking and how many true Republicans, like 1 to 5? Once again, the Republicans will keep quiet and the president once again is presented as the bad guy. Where is the leadership and togetherness? Pray for the president. Thanks, RSBN, and thanks, Steve. It sounds like, PCell, you want more Republicans to come out supporting the president on this. We saw a tweet from Steve King supporting him on this. I haven't done a big check of Twitter, so I can't really tell. Robbie, there is no White House news briefing scheduled for today. No White House news briefing scheduled for today. Emil Christopher Soli Mellar gave a donation from Norway, said, keep up the good work, guys. Greetings from Norway. We have a lot of viewers in Norway. That's very cool. Thank you, Emil, for donating. We appreciate it. Thank you. By the way, so we very well might come on the air later today, but in the meantime, if I hear big news about stuff, if I hear interesting stuff about this, I'm going to post it on my Twitter. So you can follow me on Twitter at Lookner, at Lookner, to get updates. Also, subscribe to Right Side Broadcasting. Click on the YouTube on YouTube. Click on the notifications bell so you get notified when you get notified when we're coming on the air with our videos. The corner of my eye, I see CNN now has, like, the stock market is down 2%. And I maybe whenever the news happens and the stock market goes up or down 1 or 2%, people claim that, oh, that's why it's happening. And a lot of times I don't think it's why it's happening. That's a general comment I have about the stock market and news in general. I think there's a lot of times people want to read into the stock market based on this. I mean, I think the markets knew this memo was coming out, and what the memo said is not a big surprise to the people in the markets who've been following it. So I'd be surprised if that was really all about the memo. Let's see here. So subscribe to us on YouTube. You can follow us on Facebook at Right Side Broadcasting. You can follow us on Twitter at RSB Network. And I want to say thank you to our moderators again for moderating the chat room. JC, Webster, Barbara Braley, Real Frank, Guinevere, I think might have been there. Common Sense and Gleno on the website. And I would like to say thanks to a couple people in the YouTube chat. It might be a little, my computer is doing a little something here, so I might not be able to shout out to the YouTube chat. Let me see if I can quickly do it here. Yeah, it's going to be tough to do. So I apologize. I meant the Facebook chat. I can see the YouTube chat. Oh, I know what I can maybe do. I can do it on my phone. Oh, Steve is a genius. Hang on a second. Okay, good. I have the page. This is what I should have done before. Sorry, I'm just getting this on my phone so I can see. Oops. I don't want you to... Okay, cool. Now I can see both chat rooms. Thank you for people saying thanks in the chat. Thanks to everybody who sent in their comments. Appreciate you telling me what you think about this and letting us read it on the air. Very much appreciated. Let's see here. Thank you for saying thanks, JC, in the chat room. And some other folks there are saying thank you. Miss Deborah, Ryan Lovesey, Trolita Kekistania, Larissa's Lighthouse, Joshua Marks. Hold on, this chat window is misbehaving too. Everything's misbehaving here. Here we go. Let's see if this is any better now. That's better, much better. Oki, thank you. Light Switch, Emil, YouTube 13, Propis, White Space Marines, N2 Peace, Dan PK's Critters, The Americans, GTO Mama, Glenn Shelton, Larissa's Lighthouse. And on Facebook, thank you for watching on Facebook, Terry Barnes, Sharon Keel, Pam Fisterer, Charlotte James, Judy Messer-Kerm, Kathy Mayer Farber, Louise Musienko, Lindsay Grubb, Brian Krieg, Shirley Baird, Charlotte James, Karen Bolton Lazarkis, and everybody else in the Facebook chat room. Thank you for watching. All right, so if there is big news on this, a couple last thank yous here. DM, Matt Blackwood, Dennis Casey, Robbie Ripke. Hey, Blackout Worm gave a donation. Blackout Worm, the truth will set you free. Another donation from Norway. Here's another donation from Norway. Our media is extremely left-leaning and against Trump, so the alternative media sources really are our best news friend. Thanks for the broadcast. Thank you, Blackout Worm, and to our other donors from Norway. How funny. Thank you, Hillbilly Nitro. Thank you, Happy Camper. Thank you, Patricia Blythe. And by the way, so Betsy Darling in the chat room says, in the Facebook chat says, what does the memo say? If you missed what the memo said, just rewind the video to the beginning. We spent the whole first part of this video was us reading through the memo. So you can watch this video, see us read through the memo. We read the whole thing, we talked about it, and then we took your comments on it. So watch the video again or rewind it. Do what you need to do. You can do that. It's YouTube. It's Facebook video. You can do all of that. So I would suggest doing that. All right. So again, if big news happens later today, we will come back on the air. I will post stuff on my Twitter updates if I have it about this stuff. And hang on one second here. Oh, the White House just released a statement on the memo. Well, I caught that before we got off the air. Hang on. I'll show you here. I'm going to retweet this. The White House statement says, sorry, I'm having a little difficulty with my program, so I'm going to keep it small like this. I apologize. Earlier today, President Trump declassified a memo from the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. The memo raises serious concerns about the integrity of decisions made at the highest level of the Department of Justice and the FBI to use the government's most intrusive surveillance tools against American citizens. This decision was made with input from the president's. This decision to release the memo was made with input from the president's national security team, including law enforcement officials and members of the intelligence community, for whom the president has great respect. He is especially grateful to the hardworking, rank-and-file public servants who work every day to keep America safe and uphold the laws while protecting the constitutional rights of all Americans. Minority members of the committee have reportedly drafted a separate memo. The administration stands ready to work with Congress to accommodate oversight requests consistent with the applicable standards, including the need to protect intelligence sources and methods. And President Trump does seem to be making an effort to kind of make it clear that he's criticizing GOP and DOJ FBI and DOJ leadership and not the rank and file. He has several times said, I'm a big fan of the rank and file. I have a problem with some of the leadership there. So that's from the White House. So we got that on the air before we went off the air. All right, we're going to wrap up this stream. Thank you all for watching this stream for our coverage of the release of the secret memo. If there's big news later today, we will come back on the air. But we hope you have a good day, and we'll keep you informed. Follow me on Twitter @Lookner. I'll be posting on Twitter about this today. And subscribe to I already told you, subscribe to us on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter. I told you all about that. So for now, I am Steve Lookner. I can't do my normal goodbye screen because the computer is acting up, so I'll fix that when I get off the air. So the stream's just going to stop when I say goodbye. But have a good day, everybody. Thank you for watching. Thank you for choosing Right Side. We will see you real soon, I'm sure, with more news here at Right Side Broadcasting. But have a good one, everybody, and we'll see you soon.